And a good morning, a good afternoon, actually. Ted Langdell. I am here, and we are doing something a little bit different than we have done in the past. And that's because we have kind of a Zoom meeting going on. And you'll see me kind of looking in a couple of different places because we are here in the office instead of out on location having lunch somewhere. In fact, I've been having to set this up in a hurry, so I'm not eating lunch. And I don't think my guest is either. And my guest this morning is, or this noontime, is Jacob Young. Jacob, why don't you go ahead and say hello here?
Yeah, hey Ted, thanks for having me on today. And yeah, I'm the general manager up here at Collins Lake, and I know you had asked me to join in today to kind of talk a little bit about what's been happening with the Yuba-Sutter Logging Association and from a council meeting yesterday. So I'll pass it back over to you, but happy to connect with you today and dive more into that.
Okay, so we're actually doing this by Zoom. And so it's a little bit different than what I usually do. So we will be talking with Jacob first about how he ended up here. Tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up in Yuba County.
Yeah, so I was actually born and raised here in Yuba County. So I grew up in the lake operation. I'm part of the third generation. So my grandfather, getting this going back in the 70s, 1972 is when the Young family started managing the campground here in Yuba County at Collins Lake. And so having my father and two uncles, handling the management side of that in the second generation, and now myself and my cousins coming back in. So I did leave for a season to go to college down in Southern California, and then came back here, and then now started to raise my own family. So we have the fourth generation raising up in the ranks that will, before we know it, be working here as well. So excited to be a generational family that's lived here in the foothills.
So what did you study when you went to college? And I gather you probably went to Marysville High School, graduated from there?
That is correct. So, yeah, I went to Marysville High School and graduated, and then went down to Southern California to study at Azusa Pacific University near Pasadena. So I studied business and then actually worked for the university for a few years, and ended up going on to higher education and getting my MBA degree as well before transitioning back to the area.
And what's your MBA in?
Just a master's in business, just a general MBA, so Master of Business Administration. So not a specific emphasis, but just a general master's degree there.
So when you graduated, did you expect that you would find yourself back in Yuba County?
Graduated from high school? Probably not. Actually, when I proposed to my now wife, she said, I'll say yes to marrying you as long as you agree that we will never move back to Collins Lake. And so I was like, that's fine. I'm good with that, right? And so obviously the journey to now get here to where we are here, raising our family here. I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and another baby on the way due to be born in May. So she wouldn't have it any other way, loves living here. But there definitely was a season where I would say I was not envisioning coming back here for a time period, for sure.
So it sounds like the fact that she agreed to come back to Yuba County, or was she from Yuba County? Tell us a little bit about her.
Yeah. So she was originally born and raised in Colorado. Her family moved out here. Her dad worked up at Woodleaf, which is a young life camp in Yuba County as well. And so that's what brought them here to Yuba County. She ended up going to Marysville High School as well. And that's actually where we met and started dating in high school and things like that as well. So for her transitioning to the area, once she left, she had no envisionment of coming back until some different changing circumstances and different things came up and opportunities to move back here to be a part of the family business as well.
Cool. So let me get rid of the wrong title there. Anyway, so you've gotten married. You've been up at Collins Lake for how long now as a manager?
We moved back in 2016. And that, so got plugged back into the business operations during that time with more of just a seasonal approach to actually be a year-round on the management team at that time. And then slowly as the second generation had retired out over the last 5 or 6 years, the third generations, myself, my cousins, have transitioned into different management roles here at the lake as well. And so the last of the second generation, so my two uncles retired, and then my father retired at the end of 2020. And at that time is when I transitioned into the general management role and then the ownership of the company as well.
So you've been active since about 2016 in the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association. Tell us a little bit about that and your involvement and what it does.
Yeah, so it was just, it happened to be the exact timing as I'm transitioning back in. The Tourism Improvement District, and at that time the Chamber was trying to help fan that initiative to get that started. Was knocking on the door trying to explain what this was and getting it going. And so we were supportive of the idea of getting that created. And so it just happened to be as I was transitioning in was at the exact same time they were lobbying, trying to get this initiative started. So as it got officially started, that's when we got plugged in and started to be involved in the Tourism Improvement District, which levies a 2% tax on local lodgers, the guests that stay there. So we already pay taxes to the jurisdiction, so in our case to Yuba County. So this would go from a 10% tax up to 12% tax. But that 2% increase is a budget that is utilized specifically for marketing purposes to the Yuba-Sutter region. So I mainly got plugged in just because we wanted to make sure this did not become a one jurisdiction initiative and 6 jurisdictions paying into it type thing. And so I initially got plugged in just to make sure that the Yuba foothills had a voice at the table to make sure that that was included in the marketing initiatives that were coming out.
And so that's actually been something that's been pretty effective. You guys have a fairly sizable budget for this area. It seems. What is the budget for 2022? And what does it do?
Yeah, great question. So when this was initially formed, they had to start an annual budget based off of estimates of what would come in from that 2% tax going to the lodgers, guests that were staying there. And the initial budget was created for a $250,000 annual budget. And so as this actually got started and taxes were starting to come in, we have seen that grown to where going into this year, we're operating closer to about a $350,000 budget. And when we were going forward with this renewal, we were looking at actually having about a $400,000 budget going forward into the next 10 years with the opportunity for that to grow like we saw it going from 250,000 up to about 350,000 that we're currently operating off of.
So yesterday you were making a presentation about this renewal. Tell us a little bit about the district itself, how it's managed, because it is a multi-jurisdiction kind of a process here that is apparently steered by or run through Yuba City.
So to give you a bit of that background and context, so there's it's all of the Yuba-Sutter region, which encompasses the cities of Yuba City, Marysville, Live Oak, Wheatland, as well as the counties of Yuba County and Sutter County. So 6 jurisdictions are represented in what we are in this initiative, basically. The Tourism Improvement District includes all 6 jurisdictions. Live Oak and Wheatland don't have any hotel, motel, or any lodgers that pay into a TOT tax to those jurisdictions. So they're not necessarily paying into this just because they don't have the tax revenue source going into that at this time. And so it's all the lodgers that are represented in those counties and cities. And so what happened is when this was initially formed, the lodgers came together to approve this initiative to do that. And it all started just because with the 10% TOT tax that we pay to the county, there's no accountability on that. It goes to the general fund. So they're able to use that with the intent of it going towards road repairs and different improvements so that when guests come to our region, they're using our roads, they're using the facilities and trash cans and everything else. So you need to offset some of that cost, and that's what that tax is intended for. And the lodgers believe throughout the state of California anyways, that part of that should also go towards marketing and improvements to make our state better and help get more visitors to the region. But unfortunately, there is no way to have accountability for that 10% tax and what that's used towards. And so throughout the state, they started to form these tourism improvement districts that create an additional self-assessed tax that guests that are staying at the hotels, motels, and in our case, the cabins here at Collins Lake. So when they stay here, they pay that 2% tax. That creates a budget that specifically the lodging industry manages, and it goes 100% towards the marketing efforts and improvements to make it attract more visitors to come to our region is the intent of that entire 2% tax.
So, for example, that marketing budget has paid for things like the Visit Yuba-Sutter website that we see on our screen now. We're looking at a little bit of a video clip that shows behind a Book Your Stay Now, but it shows some of the wines. It shows, right now we're seeing on the screen some motorboating, some fishing, the Bacchae Parade in downtown Marysville. It has bicycling along some trail somewhere, Sutter Buttes Brewery, the Buttes with some grapes, all kinds of stuff like that. What is the value and what is the cost and what is the return on the investment?
Yeah, great question. And so that is exactly like you said, it's highlighting the assets that our region has. So even though the intent of this is the lodgers having a revenue source to work off of and to increase visitation, it's mainly meant to highlight what does our region have to offer to want visitors to want to come here. So we've broken that down into the different segments that you see on the website as you're looking at that. But we have obviously the cultural aspect. We're a big meshing pot of different cultures mixing together in our community, and a beautiful opportunities to highlight that the Sick Festival, the Bacchae Festival, and a lot of other events that take place throughout the year. So getting a chance to sponsor those events and come outside to increase the marketing exposure and opportunities for what they're able to do. We also have, like you said, the agricultural component, so agritourism, whether that be the wineries, farm stands, things of that nature as well. Outdoor recreation is a huge component of, especially in the Yuba foothills, where we have obviously like Buller's Bar, Collins Lake, and other places for people to go camping, wakeboarding, fishing, a lot of different outdoor recreational components, hiking, things of that nature. And so we've broken that down into different segments. We have the museums, the arts, the culture. There's a lot of different unique things that make our community up of what it is. And when you've been grown and raised here, sometimes you take that for granted. So a lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing to do in this region. And actually, when we moved back in 2016, we were talking to one of our local wineries, and it helped bring things into perspective because they were, new to the area. They hadn't been born and raised here, and they're like, this is just the perfect place to be at because of all these bountiful opportunities that this area has and a wonderful environment to raise a family. So sometimes it's having that different perception of what's in your own back door, of what this area does have to offer to ourselves as well as to visitors coming to the region. And so that, as far as, what is the budget, like you said, right now we're operating at about $350,000. That goes directly towards things like event sponsorships, maintaining the website, coming up with new content for social media and other things to highlight the different things there are to do in this area, as well as attending trade shows, putting out ads in publications, and leveraging the different media sources to broadcast that out in as many channels as possible.
So we've just, as you've been talking, we've been looking at different pages of the website. For example, right now we have the wineries up on the screen. And there's I don't know, what, about 15 or 16 different wineries that are listed?
So it encompasses all the ones. We have the ones out in Sutter County and Yuba City. There's a trail of wineries out in that direction. We also have some up here in the Yuba foothills, going out this way towards Butte County as well. And so, like you said, definitely a growing industry for people to come out. And they have the North Sierra Wine Trail, which encompasses those same wineries that you're seeing there, as well as the Sutter Buttes Wine Trail. So you have two different wine trails that represent those different wineries you see represented there.
There's also links on the wineries and farms to different farm stands. There's farmers markets, and then there's a variety of other locally made products. So there's things here on Yuba-Sutter. Visit Yuba-Sutter.com, and we'll put that up on the screen here a little later. But visit Yuba-Sutter.com is the website. And there seems to be an awful lot of stuff, not just for people who are from out of town, but things to discover that people here may not know about.
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly. There's a lot of hidden gems. A lot of people, especially, if you lived in the rural foothills, you may not have gone to some of the different festivals or even into some of the museums. So it highlights some different opportunities that a lot of locals that we've gotten feedback of, oh, I've never gone to this. I've always heard of, most recently we had the Buckeye Festival and Parade. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've always seen it. I've seen videos after it. I've always intended to go, never have. And even this year, some people are like, "Oh, okay, I'll make a point to go next year." And so, being able to broadcast that even into our local community helps a lot. And there's a lot of people who were born and raised in the Yuba-Sutter area and find that there's so much more to do than they were ever aware of, even though they were born and raised and grew up in this area. It wasn't until they were in their 50s and 60s that they got out and explored some of the different assets that we have in our community.
So, is that something that surprised you in terms of people discovering the area that way?
I mean, a bit of a surprise, but at the same time, like I said, I myself, found things through being involved in this that I hadn't been participated in, and so it's nice to. I mean, you have the West Coast Falconry that's right here in Browns Valley, and I know they had sometimes gone to schools to do exhibits, but the fact that they're one of the only places in really the U.S. that give hands-on experiences with birds of prey, and it's a huge thing that a Southwest magazine article written up on them. And got some exposure that way. But at the same time, just to know that's right here in our own back door and how unique of an experience that is for people to do. Again, it's something that you drive by it every day and don't realize and take for granted, that things like that exist in our own community here.
All right. So we are watching Yuba-Sutter.live's Lunch with Langdell. I'm Ted Langdell, and we are talking with Jacob Young, who is the president of the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association, which has brought us things like the website that you're looking at here, visit Yuba-Sutter.com, which has a variety of things. There's a visitor's guide, trip ideas, events, things to do outdoors, history and art, wineries and farms, and dining and shopping, among other things. So if you take a look at that, you'll get an idea of some of the great things that you can do around here, and that I think would be maybe a surprise to some people to know that we have this kind of depth and breadth of stuff here. But that marketing effort is in danger.
Yeah. So basically, the initial district was formed on a 5-year management plan. So it was approved for a 5-year period, a 5-year term. And so the lodging industry, as we were approaching the end of that 5-year period, it was launched in 2017. So the term went from 2017 to 2022. So back in the tail end of summer going into fall, we were working with the agency that assisted on the legal aspects to get that going to do a renewal. So we were seeking a 10-year renewal to keep the district going and keep that 2% tax to continue these marketing initiatives going. And so during that 10-year renewal process, we had to get a petition drive to get 50% or more of the lodging industry to sign in support of the renewal. And then that led to a 3-step process with the city of Yuba City, which was elected to be the lead jurisdiction. Basically, when you have so many jurisdictions represented, rather than having the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association go before all 6 jurisdictions, they nominated to have the city of Yuba City be the lead jurisdiction so that we report to one jurisdiction instead of to all of them. And the fact was that the city of Yuba City, has about 65% of the represented lodgers. So since they had the biggest representation of lodgers, as well as paying the most into the TOT and TBID, that is why they were elected as the lead jurisdiction. So we got through that petition drive. We had over 50% of the industry signing petitions in support of this renewal, and that started that 3-meeting process. So back in January, we had the first meeting, which was just to bring it before the Yuba City City Council to make them aware that we had received the 50+1% to move forward with this renewal. Then the second meeting was in February, which allowed for public comment and hearing. And then last night's meeting was to finalize the process and have City Council vote on the renewal themselves to finalize that process. So at our February meeting, or at the February City Council meeting, the day before, they were notified that there was a group of lodgers that had actually formed together and wrote letters of opposition. And that also included some of the lodgers that had previously signed petitions in support of, had changed their stance and said that instead of being in support, they switched to being in opposition of the renewal. And so during that process, there was 11 of the 26 lodgers that signed those letters, but they represented 54% of the industry. And so with that, it had a majority protest going into last night's city council meeting. And so that is what last night, it was the final process to bring it before council. Since it was a notice meeting, it still had to be carried through. And so lodgers had the opportunity to switch their stance one way or the other. So anyone who is in favor of the renewal could change their stance all the way up to the closing of last night's meeting, or last night's agenda item anyways. And so, and also for those who switched to being in opposition, could still switch back to being in support of. At the conclusion of last night's meeting, there were no changes in favor or opposition. So therefore the majority protest stood, and there was a 54% majority protest, which now the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association has to wait 1 full year before going back before council to try another renewal effort. So at this time, once the 5-year term expires, that 2% tax will go away. There will be no more funding source for the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association to manage. And unless this renewal is processed next year, once the funds are spent, then it will dissolve and that will no longer happen. And that is the case.
So essentially, you're in a situation where you have the ability for the association and this funding source, or the district, I should say, the Yuba-Sutter Tourism Improvement District, will last through the end of the 2022 budget cycle, like through July?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So basically, once this was formed, the jurisdiction started to, assess the tax. So it's done on a quarterly basis. So lodgers had until the end of that first quarter to, implement it, start charging their guests. And then the assessments get sent to the jurisdiction. So in our case, Yuba County processes that, and then they send it on to the YSLA. So there is a bit of a trickle effect. So in 2017, when this was started, you get the board together, but there's a $0 budget until you start getting those assessments coming in. And so now this will go through, if I am correct, I believe it goes through the end of this first quarter. And then we'll have to wait for that to trickle down to the YSLA. So we'll receive the last of the income coming into the budget in around June or July. And at that time, there will be no more incoming budget. And so once those funds are expended, so even though it stops as of about sometime in April, we'll no longer receive additional tax income coming in. It does still have a budget that still will be coming in and being spent. And we would anticipate that would be able to sustain the marketing efforts already in place through about summer of 2023.
So you're actually not totally stuck.
Yeah, it's not the eulogy
to try to continue this marketing
effort.
effort.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not giving a eulogy saying now as of today it's done, because there is that trickle down effect. However, it does stop having an incoming revenue source. So once what's in the budget and in the account, once that gets expended, there will be no more money coming in unless this renewal happens. And it is bittersweet, because it is bitter knowing that now we do not have this revenue source that is at no cost to taxpayers, no cost to the lodgers. It's truly a revenue source of free money coming in that the guests coming into the region are paying themselves into this. So it is bitter to see that opportunity potentially going away. If that 10-year renewal goes through and we have $400,000 plus annually, you're looking at least $4 million that was essentially no longer coming to the table to be expended to help and better our community. It was definitely an economic engine for economic development that was, unfortunately, the lodging industry at this time doesn't see the value in continuing. And the sweet part, though, is it did bring other lodgers to the table, even those in opposition, that are willing to come together and collaborate on a way to move forward. So we're very optimistic. We have new lodgers coming into town as well. Like Yuba City is about to have Holiday Inn coming in and opening its doors in the coming year. So they'll be at the table throughout this year. And then also those in opposition. gave us the opportunity to hear some of their criticisms and feedback. Some of it was towards marketing initiatives that they would have liked to have seen. Obviously, we would have liked to have had their involvement, within this 5-year time period, and not on the dawning of this and to get a last-minute opposition. But it did create the opportunity to get to have them at the table now. And I know that they said they have voiced that they are excited to get involved and be at the table. So hopefully during this year, even though we'll have a gap year of funding, hopefully they'll get their voice at the table and then be supportive of a renewal once their initiatives are kind of brought to the table as well. And some of it was jurisdictional. It wasn't marketing efforts. So you have issues ranging from chickens in Yuba City causing disruptions to guests and causing damages, all the way up to homeless and drug addicts interfering with their stay, where some lodgers said they would receive tourism benefits. People would be coming in, booking a room, but unfortunately, due to interactions with people in the parking lots or knocking on their doors or things of that nature, they would come back to the front desk and leave. So there are issues that, again, we can't really address on a marketing front, but on the jurisdictions, there's definitely going to be some work moving forward that, now that they have those perspectives out there, they can go. And of course, there's always the political aspect where different things are coming to my attention that politically there are things going on behind the scenes to sway people's decisions in that as well. But for the majority of it, I did appreciate talking to about 4 or 5 of the different lodgers in depth for multiple hour conversations, and excited to see where that will lead in the coming year. And I said, we feel very optimistic that the environment that we'll enter into next year in the renewal process will be very different than the one we encountered in the last month or so.
You're watching Lunch with Langdell. I'm Ted Langdell, and we are in Marysville, and we are talking with Jacob Young, who is the president of the Yuba-Sutter Lodging Association, also the manager up at Collins Lake. You may have visited up there. And we're talking about what happened last night at the Yuba City Council meeting with protests about the Yuba-Sutter tourism development or tourism improvement district. There we go. The tourism improvement district, and continuing that. Now, again, there were protests, and obviously you've had some opportunity to hear more from some of the people who were objecting to collecting this tax from out of town visitors who would stay for less than 30 days. And on $100 at a 2% tax, it's $2. So it's probably not the amount of money.
No, exactly. It's a pretty. They're going to be paying a 10% tax anyways that goes into the TOT. So exactly. I know Lee Jones from the Harkey House spoke at last night's meeting, and so she said some of their rooms are going for $200, $250 a night, and so the guests would be paying $4 to $5 as part of that a tax that gets added onto that. So she said it's so nominal that it doesn't make it to where the guests are going to turn around and leave. If you go to any jurisdiction, higher taxes, it's some are doing 4 or 5% tourism taxes in different districts. So if you go to most hotels in California, you expect to pay a tourism fee of some sort. So you get your base rate, advertised room rate, whether it's $49 a night or $499 a night, that you're going to have other taxes and fees associated to that. So like I said, it doesn't necessarily sway anyone's decision to book a hotel room or not. It's just a nominal fee that gets added onto that with a tremendous benefit to our community.
Do you have any metrics that would enable you to identify what the benefit has been to Yuba-Sutter in terms of being able to track what has been brought in terms of numbers of visitors and that kind of thing?
And that's obviously, like you were saying, return on investment, right? Okay, we do this initiative. How do we know it's working? How do we know we're seeing traction? And you cut out a little bit there, but I think I kind of got the gist of what you're asking there. And we do have some metrics to go off of with that. One is the growth of the TOD and TBID funding. So obviously, as you have a higher growth in there, that is one metric that we can see that as there's a growth of income, that means that there is a growth of stays. Now, granted, not all of that is 100% due to marketing efforts. You have other things such as disaster work, with these campfires, the Orville Dam, infrastructure issue that happened in 2017. brought, workers. Some of them were staying. Most of those would be 30 days or longer that weren't paying into that anyways, or being government agencies that might be exempt. However, so you do have other contributing factors that do come into that metric alone. But a piece of that should be the fact that you are marketing and you're seeing that increase. That is as something to watch in that regard, as well as activity with the initiative. So the website is something that we see growth. We saw about 150% increase. Now, the interesting thing that we had too was a timeline issue where we got this launched and going. The board came together to start getting the marketing initiatives formed and getting on the same page as far as a marketing strategy plan. It was about 2019, May of 2019 is when that officially relaunched the rebrand of Visit Yuba-Sutter, where we had the website.
And right now we're watching the video that was produced a few years ago, and I believe was
happened in
debuted
10
at
months.
the... Yeah, we've been cutting out a little bit here, so hopefully people can see you and me, and things will come back. But we've been watching some of the things that are in the video, the marketing video that was produced back in, I guess, 2017, 2018, something like that, and debuted back then. Yeah. And it showcases
yes, that video would have been
events.
launched in 2018.
Do people mention things like that, or I saw your website, or I saw your video, or things like that?
Yeah, no, we definitely get feedback from the public as well as different vendors. So our tourism coordinator and marketing agency has reached out. I mean, we got the American Junior Golf Association started an annual tournament at Peachtree Golf Course because of the YSLA's sponsorship and initiative to take that on. And so we have other sports. We had a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, but now that we're starting to see activities start to return to more normalcy as far as getting sporting events, concerts, things of that nature reinstated into our community, as well as community events, we're starting to see attention coming from also program organizers and different opportunities to bring sports events and different types of films and things of that nature to our community as well.
And one of those particular sports events would be something that used to happen down in the Sacramento area, and that would be a youth football league, the Cali Bowl, or the California Bowl. We've been working with Chris on that, and I believe there's an item on your agenda for your next meeting about assistance with making sure that rooms can get booked and some other things in that regard. But the California Bowl brought people from Hawaii and from Nevada, from I think there was a team from Utah, several other places as well, and they needed rooms. And since this was kind of a last-minute thing last year in November, Chris has got had some issues trying to get rooms here and there, and he's jumping on the gun right now and feels very comfortable here in Yuba-Sutter, with the Cali Bowl being at Yuba City High School, River Valley, and Marysville High School, and possibly Lyndhurst, depending on how many teams that they're bringing in from a variety of places, not just within the immediate area, say within 100 or 200 miles of Marysville, Yuba City, but also elsewhere, like Hawaii. They're coming back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's exciting to see Western region coming to our area. Like you said, 4 or 5 different states represented in most of these tournaments. So yeah, that's going to be a big tournament to be bringing in here as a one-off event that could turn into an annual legacy tournament that we keep coming back here year after year as well. So we're excited for the Cali Bowl and seeing with that tournament come this fall.
Well, we're happy that we were able to have you on Lunch with Langdell today, and try to explain some of the issues that you've run into lately, and the how to continue doing what has been it seems like a pretty successful marketing effort. It certainly looks good. If we take a look at the website here, which is visit Yuba-Sutter .com. That's visit Yuba-Sutter.com. So if you're interested in finding out more about our area, just pop on visit Yuba-Sutter.com, and I'm sure you're going to be surprised about what kinds of things we have here, because there's a whole bunch of events and things like that, places to go, things to experience, and an 85-page brochure that you can look at. It's the Visit Yuba-Sutter Visitor's Guide that you can link to from the front page here, and that's what we're seeing here. So there's a welcome. You can read what Jacob was talking about, and more about what's going on in our community. Jacob, thank you for being with us today. Whoops, let's get you back up here for one last hurrah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Ted. I thank you for taking initiative to dive deeper into this subject, and yeah, we look forward to collaborating as an industry, and hopefully there's a lot of different ways to move forward from here. So it's definitely not done, and hopefully we can collaborate as an industry to keep this initiative moving forward to benefit our community for years to come.
Well, I think that's likely to happen, and we'll be checking back in with you to find out more about what happens in the weeks and months ahead, how you're able to perhaps bring in some grant money or something else to maybe replace what's been lost temporarily until you can kind of revisit this issue next year, and see if in the meantime you've been able to talk to some of the lodging operators and help them understand a bit more about what this marketing effort does, and bring to the attention of the local jurisdictions some of the issues that they've brought to your attention, and kind of get everybody together in the same room and see what can be worked out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to keep progress updates as we go along as well.
Okay. Well, that is Jacob Young, and Jacob is the president of the Yuba-Sutter Tourism Improvement District, which will be kind of temporarily fading away for a year, but some of the activities are going to be sustained, and we'll learn more about, or if you take a look back, you can see what sorts of activities they do. Jacob, thank you again. It looks like a beautiful day up in Collins Lake, and I'm sure some of our folks are going to be heading up and checking out the fishing and other recreation later today, tomorrow, this weekend, bringing some of their friends and neighbors.
Yeah, definitely. I'll look forward to having you up for an ice cream yourself here pretty soon.
I like your soft serve. Jacob, thank you very much. Hang on just a second. We'll wrap this up after we get the show done here. Tell you a little bit about what's coming up on Lunch with Langdell here in the weeks and months ahead. Let me kind of bring the volume down on this particular part of this. Lunch with Langdell is our new show, noon Wednesdays, and we want to let you know that we get support from these fine people: Jackie Hauser-Stillman, Gary Bradford, Brent Hasty, and Charles Sharp, who are all very community-minded. Coming up next week, we'll be over at the Tri-County Community Center, the former Marysville Youth and Civic Center on B Street in Marysville, talking with Jordan Adams and some other people about what happens there. And in the weeks ahead, we'll also be talking with David Reed of the Sutter Theater for the Arts about a mariachi concert that's coming up on Lunch with Langdell. So we will hope to see you coming up next Wednesday at noontime. And then on April 6th, we'll be talking with Marnie Sanders from the Yuba-Sutter Chamber of Commerce about her experiences here in Yuba-Sutter, how she got to be here, and why she is here, and what she is doing here, all on Lunch with Langdell. I'm Ted Langdell, and we hope that you have a wonderful Wednesday and the rest of the week. And come and watch what's going on next week on Tuesday as we bring you the stream of Tuesday government meetings that you have been watching here for a number of years now.